All right, on today's show, I thought we'd revisit something we discussed a couple of months ago. EA Sports NCAA Football 25 is coming out at some point before football season, right? And so Tennessee players who are going to be highly rated in that game. And one player in particular better be one of the highest rated players in the country. That and more. It's coming up here next on a Wednesday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Wednesday morning, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Vols. I am Eric Kane. So glad to have you guys along for the ride here today. This is Locked On Vols. Tennessee football coverage, Tennessee basketball coverage, recruiting coverage, baseball coverage, whatever type of Tennessee Volunteers coverage you want. It's weekday mornings, about 32 minutes or less, right here on Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. You can watch us, listen to us, follow us, download us. All that for free, wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day. Shout out to those everydayers for making this show what it is. So on today's show, we got a lot to get into. Gonna have this video game topic here in segment number 1. And if you're about to turn it off, I encourage you to wait. I'm going to show my work here. Just wait a minute before you turn it off. If you say, "Oh, them video games, they don't bother to me," right? Just wait. Angry emails. Woo! Angry emails. In segment number 2, I'll get into that here in a moment. And, of course, a little bit of the 2025 hoop schedule for the SEC. And then we'll get into Award Wednesday coming up in segment number 3. All that and more. It's coming up here on your Wednesday edition of Locked On Vols. Okay, so I want to tell you guys about the EA Sports video game. So I'm not a huge gamer. I've never really been a huge gamer. However, when I was a kid, I had a PS2, I had an Xbox, I had friends in college, okay? We played video games. I mean, that's the time in my life when I played video games. As an adult, I don't, not to sound too proud or whatever, but I simply don't have time for it, and I don't even have kids. But there's a lot of people my age still that play video games, and there's nothing wrong with that. But my video game craze was a little bit of Call of Duty Zombies, okay? If you know, you know, all right? But a lot of Madden, a lot of NC Dubs. NC Dubs, Jake Crane put it on his show earlier this week. It was kind of the video game of our childhood. And I couldn't agree more with that. Maybe some elders in the audience right now, Tecmo Bowl, right? It was such a big deal. It was so much fun. That's what NCAA was for my generation. And it's coming back. And it's not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things, but it's a little nostalgia. It takes us back in the Wayback Machine. All right? If I have kids one day, maybe they'll be playing NC Dubs. Maybe I'll buy a console and play a little NC Dubs just for the heck of it, right? I mean, it's fun, and it gets you, as Jake put it on his show the other day, and I, again, couldn't agree more, it got you through the offseason and got you a little bit closer to football season. You play with your favorite team, you do dynasty mode, you do Heisman campaigns, you take a team like Western Michigan and go win a natty. I mean, it's fun, right? So there's a lot of hoopla about NCAA returning, and of course they put out a little teaser. They put out the cover of NCAA football last week, and they had notable athletes on the front of it. Edwards of Michigan, of course, Quinn Ewers from Texas, Travis Hunter from Colorado, Judkins over there at Ohio State now, Jalen Milroe is seen in there, Carson Beck is seen in there. There's a lot of different players. There's a Tennessee helmet if you look really, really close. There's a lot of different players represented on the cover of what College Football 25 is going to be. And they put a countdown, College Football 25, but actually put a countdown that said, hey, there's going to be more news coming up in the next week on May the 16th, which is tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So we expect more news about the NCAA video game coming out tomorrow, as an official launch date has not been named yet, but of course it's very, very near in the near future. So CBS Sports put out, and they were talking about the cover the cover art that was displayed out there, and then they kind of put something out there that said, hey, who's going to be the highest rated players in the new NCAA football game 25? And of course, you have to opt in and play, and you have to opt in and say that, hey, I'm gonna be a part of this franchise, and 99.9% of players are opting in to be a part of the franchise, because this is one thing that, sure, those Caleb Williams types of, call it like it is, selfish individuals probably wouldn't be a part of this, but This game is bigger than any one specific player. And so 99.9% of players are going to opt in and want to be a part of this and be in a video game. Who wouldn't want to be in a video game, right? And so CBS Sports put out some of the projected highest-rated NCAA football players in 2025. Ollie Gordon, the second running back of Oklahoma State, is projected at a 99 overall. Woo! That is a high projection. 99 overall. To lead the way, Travis Hunter at 97 overall, Quinn Ewers 96 overall, Harold Perkins 95 overall, Shadir Sanders 94 overall, Carson Beck 94 overall, Jalen Daniels, quarterback of Kansas, is 94 overall. I mean, there's a player missing here, right? Where the heck is James Pearce? Where the guy that is being talked about? And again, it's May. I recognize this, and we made fun of this with Will Levis a couple years ago. I get it. But the guy that is being talked about is like, stock rise, James Pearce. Number 1 overall in the 2025 NFL draft, potentially. Number 1 player in the SEC. Top defensive player in college football. Where is he? And again, these are just projections, okay? So this is not the if and final, dot the I's, cross the T's. But if these guys are ahead of James Pearce better be next in line at 93 overall. My point is, I think it's safe to say that James Pearce is going to be at a 93. James Pearce is going to be the highest rated Tennessee football player in this game. And maybe some of you guys that are turned off by the video game or whatever, might say, oh, well, I got a highly rated Tennessee football player on there. Maybe I want to go win a national championship. Maybe I'll take part in all this. And trust me, they will take your money. My question for you is, James Pearce is going to be the number 1 overall rated player in the game for Tennessee. Who is next? Okay. Is it Nico? And how do you, it's like rookies coming in for the Madden video game. How do you rate rookies, or how do you rate freshmen, or how do you rate players who haven't played an awful lot? That's going to be tough, because I have Lance Hurd wrote down here on my list right here. He was a 5-star prospect, the highest rated prospect signed by LSU in the class of 2023. He's not played much. Now he's at Tennessee. I think he's going to be one of Tennessee's highest rated players, but what is his ranking going to be? What's his rating going to be? I don't know. That's a really, really good question. Same with Nico. Number 1 overall player in the country for the class of 2023. Did make 1 start. Did really, really good in the Citrus Bowl. Looked fantastic. But what is his rating going to be? We know James Pearce is going to be up there. I think 2 of Tennessee's highest rated players are going to reside on the offensive line. I think it's going to be Cooper Mays. I think it's going to be Javonte Spraggins. And John Campbell, who Cole Kubelik on his podcast earlier this week said that John Campbell might be one of the best offensive tackles in the SEC, which I thought was interesting, and I totally respect everything Cole says because he's been football related, because he's been there, done that, and he obviously knows what he's talking about. I think he does great work, but I was a little caught off guard with that comment. I mean, you take it as a Tennessee fan, right? But LSU still has 2 offensive tackles that are really, really good, and Will Campbell, right? That's his name. He's being one of them. There's some really good offensive tackles in this league, but John Campbell is a 7th-year guy in this league. What is his rating going to be? I'm curious. Bryson Eason, who has gotten so much positive talk around campus, but for the people making the ratings of this video game, I don't think that's going to have a whole lot of stock for Bryson Eason's rating. You know what I'm saying? Like, Bryson Eason's ratings are not going to be a 90 or above, but for Rodney Gardner, if he was making this rating, I bet Bryson Eason's rating would be about 90 overall, which is pretty solid. Omar Norman-Lott, who had 5.5 sacks from the interior defensive tackle spot last year. I think he's going to be one of Tennessee's highest rated players. Keenan Peely, who's been in college for a long time, just like John Campbell. What's his rating going to be as an older guy coming over to the SEC for his first year? Of course, he played in the opener last year and then got hurt. Coming off injury as well. What's his rating going to be? My point is, it's kind of a crapshoot when you try to talk about ratings. But for sure, James Pearce needs to be one of the highest rated players in this video game. And if he's not, then the people making these ratings over at EA Sports don't know what they're doing. Because James Pearce is going to be one of the best overall players in the country this year. He's going to be one of the best pass rushers in the country, and certainly in the SEC. And he's going to be a big reason why I think Tennessee's going to have a whole lot of success. So for James Pearce, I'll go ahead and call my shot here. I think James Pearce is going to be about 94 overall, which is pretty solid. Will Tennessee have any other players in the 90s? I don't know. Probably not. but I don't have all the criteria on kind of how you're going to rate your players. But I think James Pearce is going to be up there at 94 because James Pearce is one of the best players in the country. Am I forgetting anybody in terms of the Tennessee players who are going to be highly rated? I think Squirrel White's going to be up there, but again, he's got some things working against him. Obviously, his stature will be working against him a little bit. Brew McCoy, a former 5-star prospect, but I think he's a solid 88, 89. That's just my opinion. Again, I don't have the criteria on what you're going to rate these players, but that's just kind of my opinion. Mike Matthews, and then a 5-star freshman. What's his rating? How do they rate these 5-star prospects coming in for their first year? I don't know. I'm going to be super pumped to see what Tennessee's ratings are. I think it's going to be really, really fun and exciting and cool to talk about. I hope they release NC Dubs on like June or July, and then we can spend a couple of shows kind of going over it and kind of looking through it and discussing what is right and what is wrong. I just think that would that'd be a whole lot of fun. But one thing's for certain. James Pearce better be up there. James Pearce better be up there as one of the highest rated players in this new NC Dubs video game whenever it comes out. And heck, maybe tomorrow we will find out when it comes out. Hey, when we come back, angry emails. What do I mean by that? Plus 2025 SEC basketball schedule. Some of the good, some of the bad. That's coming up next. We'll have Ward Wednesday coming up in segment number 3. All that and more as we continue on here with a Wednesday Locked On Vols. I want to tell you about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and leveled up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof rack, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts to choose from for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money is back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make turning your car into the MVP and bring home those wins. Keep your ride or die alive today at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, welcome back into segment number 2 of your Wednesday edition of Locked On Vols. Can't thank you enough for being here. We got Ward Wednesday coming up in segment 3. It's a little shorter bridge segment here in the second stanza here on a Wednesday. I want to touch base real quick on Tennessee's SEC opponents for hoops in 2025. It's going to be 18 games. Of course, you're implementing Texas and Oklahoma, but still 18 games. Tennessee's home slate's going to feature games against Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Missouri, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. So no newness in the home slate. However, Tennessee's going to be on the road, and we'll square off against two of the new teams on the road, Oklahoma and Texas. Why? That's, again, we're going to talk about schedule making with Josh here in a moment, but it's almost like the schedule makers knew what they were doing when they had Tennessee on the road at Texas for the second time in what will it be, 4 years. Of course, the last time was the Big 12 SEC Challenge. Tennessee's games on the road are going to be Auburn, Florida, Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M, and Vanderbilt. Conference play is going to begin on January the 4th. It'll run through March the 8th. Each SEC team will play the other 15 teams at least once in league play, which I love. Schools will have 3 foes twice on their schedule, 2 of which are permanent opponents, and 1 that is a rotation every single year. Tennessee will have home-and-home series against Florida, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt during the 2023 season. Of course, dates and tip-off times and TV destinations are unknown at this time. All we have is the opponents. But again, home schedule, Alabama just coming off a huge season. That's going to be a massive one. Arkansas, the new-look Razorbacks, that's going to be huge. It's always big when you have Florida in town, when you have the new-look Kentucky team in town. Vanderbilt, in-state rival. Those are some of the highlights of the home schedule. On the road, going to see Bruce Pearl and Auburn. That'll be huge. In Rupp Arena is always huge. At Ole Miss will be a challenge, in my opinion, as they continue to grow with Chris Beard. At Oklahoma and Texas, we already mentioned that, and of course at Vanderbilt. So pretty standard SEC opponents that were released, and the SEC just continues to get better and better and better. It's going to continue to get better with Texas and Oklahoma, just like in football. All right, the second half of this segment, then I got that housekeeping out of the way. I'm not going to read it verbatim. I'm not going to go word for word of this story, but I encourage you to go and check out Adam Sparks' latest hit over at Knox News, the Knoxville News Sentinel. And the headline says, "Rotten hell. Angry emails from Lady Vols fans to Danny White over Kelly Harper firing." Again, I'm not going to read everything, but I'm going to cite a couple of examples, okay? Of course, Tennessee made the move to move on from Kelly Harper on April the 1st and has since hired Kim Caldwell and trying to move in a new direction to try to restore the history and everything of what this program is. And I'm not here to bash on the prior regime. I'm not here to do that at all. I'm just here to point out some of the just hilarious emails that were sent to Athletic Director Danny White because, again, sometimes we need to stop and think and actually see if what we are typing in an email is accurate, because a lot of the emails that Danny White, according to this report from Knox News, were not accurate. We're just completely not accurate. 54 emails sent to Danny White's official UT account were obtained by Knox News through an open records request, focused on responses to the firing of Kelly Harper, the ensuing coaching search, and the hiring of Kim Caldwell. A couple of the bullet points that were pointed out here called Danny White a sleazeball. You can rot in hell for being such a beep. Let's see. Hoping Lady Vols lose to teach Danny White a lesson. So there were some fans that were reaching out to Danny White hoping the program continues to lose so that he would learn a lesson. There was a pastor who apparently sent a couple of emails trying to instruct Danny White on the history of basketball and women's basketball and citing Adolph Rupp and Pat Summitt about how they won all those national titles. But that's just not the era that we're in anymore, and that dominance will never, ever happen again. So somebody wrote an email. This is my favorite one. Somebody wrote an email blaming John Adams for the firing of Kelly Harper. John Adams, who has no say. He's a columnist for the Sentinel. A lot of Tennessee fans don't like John Adams and never have. Just comes to the a lot of people don't like me and never have, never will. Again, it comes with the territory. But they're blaming John Adams for Danny White firing Kelly Harper, which is just hilarious. Oh, man. One fan, if that's not my favorite one, this one's my favorite one. One fan blaming Danny White, frustrated with Danny White for not only firing Kelly Harper, but firing Holly Warlick as well. Philip Fulmer fired Holly Warlick. I mean, come on. Gosh. Oh, my goodness gracious. Again, fans, short for fanatics. Another fan wanted to compare the records and the situations of Kelly Harper to Rick Barnes, and saying, well, are you going to fire Rick Barnes next because Rick Barnes has more losses than Kelly Harper did? Okay, well, he also had nearly 100 more wins as well, and of course he coached a couple more years longer, but nonetheless, one longtime fan who was so furious. I didn't see this one. One longtime fan who was so furious he forgot the athletic director's name. Instead of calling him Danny White, he called him Mike White, who of course is his brother, the head basketball coach at Georgia. Oh my goodness. There's countless other examples in here, and one fan says, why not give Kelly Harper 10 years to win? Oh, man. Again, this is a great piece, and I just gave a couple of examples. I didn't read exactly word for word what the lines in the email say. Encourage you to go check it out. Adam Sparks does a really, really great job. You'll get a really, really good laugh. And again, I'm not trying to diminish the fandom of Lady Vols basketball program because it's proud and it's tradition, and I love it. But sometimes our emotions as fans, myself included, get the best of us. And there are countless examples in the story of how the emotions got the best of us as fans. Great stuff there from Adam Sparks. I encourage you to go check out that work over at Knox News. Hey, when we come back, we'll get in with Josh Ward for a little Ward Wednesday hit right here on a Wednesday Locked On Vols. Gametime. Put in that promo code over at Gametime on the app, and that's the promo code is Locked On College. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Put in that promo code Locked On College, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off over at the Gametime app. What is the Gametime app? Well, it's where you can buy tickets to sporting events, to concerts, to comedy events, to theater, to monster truck rallies, to whatever's going on at the Food City Center, Thompson Bowling Arena. You can buy tickets to your events in your area by downloading the Gametime app. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. You save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event with the flash deals, zone deals as well, where you can save even more when you choose a section and let Gametime choose the seats for you. All in prices. Toggling this feature shows the total up front, so no surprises at checkout, plus the lowest price guarantee, where Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a cheaper ticket somewhere else in your same section. What do you have to lose? For the procrastinator like you and me, go to Gametime, download that app, put in the promo code LockedOnCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Go to Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. Josh Ward for Little Ward Wednesdays coming up next. We continue on here with the Wednesday Locked On Vols. Hey, welcome back in here to a final segment of your Wednesday show, Locked On Vols, and it's a segment we like to call Ward Wednesday. We welcome on Josh Ward of 99.1 The Sports Animal. Josh, former host here of Locked On Vols, is the co-host of Josh and Swain with VFL Jason Swain. Josh, talked about it in segment number 1 a little bit. If I were to ask you, outside of James Pearce, who Tennessee's highest rated player on the new NCAA video game is going to be, who would you say?
This is a good question. Could it be Brew McCoy? Maybe Dylan Sampson. Cooper Mays, I think, is the most important player outside of Nico. I don't know that Nico's there yet. Although maybe, because there's a ton of hype around him. He's a 5-star out of high school. So I've danced around to give you a bunch of answers. I don't know who the obvious suggestion is there. I think the potential would be Nico.
Yeah,
but I don't know that that's a rating that's deserved ahead of his first regular season start of his career.
No, there's no obvious slam dunk answer to that. I mean, James Pearce is going to be one of the highest rated, should be one of the highest rated players in the video game. Mm-hmm. But Nico was the number 1 overall player coming into Tennessee, and then he was a backup in season 1, got the start with the Citrus Bowl and did some good things. My question is, how do you evaluate guys like Nico, guys like Lance Hurd, similar situation as Nico, not number 1 in the country, but a 5-star, didn't play behind 2 really good tackles at LSU, and now coming over, like, how do you evaluate him? Because his name was kind of in that group as well for me. And then somebody like Mike Matthews, who, again, 5-star freshman, hasn't played. How do you rate those groups of players? I don't have the answer to that, so I think that we're going to we're going to get some answers, obviously, when the game finally comes out.
Yeah, it feels a little different than if you're trying to rank or rate a rookie in the NFL. So if you're trying to, for Madden, come up with what are the numbers for Caleb Williams or for Marvin Harrison Jr., you feel like you have a little more to go with based on what they were able to do playing power conference football versus high school recruits coming in. So I don't know. And I know Nico's not a high school recruit. He's a second-year guy. What you probably do there is you have some attributes, awareness or whatever, that they use that would be a little bit lower. But the physical attributes have to be there. There's no question about Nico's physical talent, what he can do throwing the football, his ability to move. He might get a boost with his mobility numbers because of what he did against Iowa in the bowl game. I think that would be deserved. He did more. He was more involved than I expected. I didn't expect 3 rushing touchdowns from him. So maybe it ends up being Nico. Like, if Nico's the number 2 guy behind Pearce has to be the highest rated. If it's Nico number 2, it's justifiable based on his physical talent.
Yep, some good points there, Josh. Want to ask you this as well. We talked about this earlier in the week. If I were to ask you what the ceiling is for Tennessee football in 24, what is the ceiling? And then on the flip side, the floor. If everything goes wrong, what is the floor? And again, I know it's your interpretation because truly, not just for Tennessee, but every team in America, if everything goes right, you're undefeated. If everything goes poorly, you're winless. But so kind of make it your own.
Yeah, I think the ceiling for Tennessee is likely to be a playoff team and get to host a first-round game and win that game. That puts you into the final 8. I mean, if we're talking about best-case scenario and trying to be realistic in that, I would say best case is to get to the playoff and win a couple of games. I think that's realistic if we're saying that Tennessee's there. And if they're there, that means the offense has been really good and the defense has probably lived up to a lot of what we've talked about. so they can go beat a couple of teams in the playoff? Can they get to the semifinals and win and then go to the championship game? I think Tennessee still needs more personnel-wise to be able to do that. So could they? I think so. So that's a technical answer to best case, but I think the ceiling is to go to the playoff and win a couple of games, which would be tremendous. The floor, I mean, the floor to me is affected injury-wise. I don't know how much I can include injuries, because the biggest fear I have for Tennessee, where this season doesn't work out at all and it ends up being a disaster, besides injury at quarterback, because you're going to have a tremendous drop-off there most likely, would be if they deal with injuries on the offensive line. I like the offensive line starters a lot. The depth is a big question. If they lose Cooper, that's why I mentioned him being so important. That immediately creates all kinds of concern. And of course, when does that happen in the season? But let's say they're relatively healthy. Nico plays all season. The floor for this team, I would say, is probably 7-5, 8-4.
Yeah, my floor was, and again, this is, I guess I wasn't counting in the fact that, like, hey, I don't even like to talk about it, but like if you were to lose a quarterback for like a month, I mean that's a huge deal.
Yeah, that's more what is the catastrophic scenario, not floor of the team.
Yeah. So with that being said, my floor was kind of 8-4, knowing, okay, well, the loss on the road at Georgia, okay, probably a loss at home to Alabama, including a loss probably on the road at Oklahoma. Knowing there's some other toss-up games in there as well. And then the Florida game's still there. And like people are saying, well, you need to beat this Florida team. Well, yeah, you should beat this Florida team. This Florida team sucks. But there's been a lot of Florida teams that have been really bad that Tennessee hadn't beat. And like, you know what I'm saying? It's just kind of like it's Tennessee, Kentucky. It's this one game on the schedule to where if we're talking floor, Tennessee finds a way to lose that game as well. So that's kind of where 8-4 was for me in that conversation, saying, all right, well, Oklahoma, Florida, Alabama, Georgia.
Yeah, we have to be fair, I think. If we're going to talk, the floor is, okay, if everything goes poorly. It's not an expectation that those things are going to happen. I don't think Tennessee will be 7-5. I don't think they'll be 8-4. But if things go poorly, like NC State's not a gimme. What if worst case scenario happens in September and they come out 2-2? Then you start to wonder, okay, why is that? Are players not as good as we thought? How does the team deal with it? You have a young quarterback. Pressure starts to mount. All of a sudden, this playoff talk that you had all off season is no longer there. If you're 2-2, how do you deal with that? Because those are two losable games. I don't think Tennessee's going to be 2-2, but if they are, then the floor of your season comes into play. So getting off to a good start is important for everybody. It's especially the case for Tennessee this year.
Do you think Oklahoma is going to be more battle tested and ready? They got to play Houston. Obviously different looking there. And of course, Tulane is very different looking because the change there, but they have those two games prior to hosting Tennessee in week 4. Tennessee has NC State, which will be a challenge. And then you've got, Kent State, UTC, and I don't even know what games are up there. I mean, Tennessee's got 3 gimmies, and then Tennessee's got NC State. So will Oklahoma be more battle-tested and be more ready to roll?
Well, Houston and Tulane are quality opponents, but I would say no because of the NC State game taking place away from home. It's neutral site, so there will be a ton of Tennessee fans there, but Tennessee will have played a game away from Neyland Stadium against a preseason top 25 team, and that's a pretty good tune-up if we're comparing it to what Oklahoma will have faced. To me, the advantage will just be that the game's in Norman. I know it's Brent Venables, not Bob Stoops, and I have questions about Oklahoma's offensive line. How does that come together early in the season, especially against Tennessee's defensive line? But going to Norman, Oklahoma to take on the Sooners in their SEC debut, that's going to be a huge deal. Their former national championship quarterbacks coming to town. Just like we'll talk about it with Josh Heupel going back to his alma mater, Oklahoma's going to talk about, hey, we're entering the SEC now, and we get to take on our former championship quarterback in this first game. It's going to be a huge deal there. So that to me is the advantage if you're looking for one that Oklahoma will have. Schedule leading up to it, I think, is probably a wash overall.
It's almost like the schedule makers in the Southeastern Conference had an agenda there, with the whole.
Oh, that looks like a total coincidence to me.
Total coincidence, total coincidence.
Yeah. They probably didn't know. They probably weren't familiar with.
We probably told them when we wrote the stories, right?
Probably, yeah.
18 game schedule. Again, for Tennessee basketball, 2 new teams are entering the SEC landscape. Of course, Texas and Oklahoma, talking basketball now. SEC opponents were released earlier this week, citing historical rivalries and, a new schedule and all that. Tennessee is going to have home games against Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Missouri, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. Going to be on the road against Auburn, Florida, Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M, and Vanderbilt. Some home and homes in there. Of course, dates and times have not been released yet. What do you like about the opponents that were released for Tennessee earlier this week?
Well, the Alabama and Arkansas games are going to be huge in Knoxville. Alabama's going to be good. They're coming off the Final Four trip. They've accumulated talent again and might be the team to beat going into the season in SEC play. Arkansas, John Calipari's coming to town. Jonas Aidoo's coming back to town. That's a huge deal. Going to Auburn, it's a road game, but that's going to be a big deal taking on Bruce Pearl's team because I think they'll be good again and they'll look to get revenge at home. So that's a big deal. And then I'm excited for the Kentucky home and home every season, but this year it's a new start there. So this SEC basketball league is going to be a lot of fun with the newcomers coming in. Going to Texas is not as big of a deal as a few years ago because that was the first time for Rick Barnes going back to Austin, but they'll probably be pretty good. And going to Austin is still a big deal for Rick, and you have the UT versus UT storyline. So this year's going to be fun in basketball. Football is king. Baseball is the big deal coming up here over the next few weeks. But because of the transfer portal, because of the new rosters that we're going to see, because of John Calipari moving to a different SEC school and a new coach coming in at Kentucky, we have all kinds of storylines for the upcoming basketball year too.
Yep, no doubt. All right, Josh, what's coming up the rest of the week on Josh and Swain over at 99.1 The Sports Animal?
Yeah, so transfer portal watch is on with Chaz Lanier. That Tennessee-Kentucky battle is a big one. So we're talking about that. We're talking about the offseason in football, the build-up to the 24 season with these win totals that have been coming out and the anticipation. Tennessee is a contender. The odds makers are telling you Tennessee's in play here, but they need some of those best-case scenarios to play out. So we're covering that on Josh and Swain each day, and we have the newsletter coming out Friday morning. It's free to subscribe at joshandswain.com.
And the link is in the bio of this show as well. Josh, appreciate it as always, man.
Thanks, Eric.
All right, that is Josh Ward, a little segment we like to call Ward Wednesday right here on Locked On Vols each and every Wednesday. And appreciate you guys for tuning in and take part in this fun show. I love, don't spend a whole lot of time on it because obviously we got more important things going on. But a little video game talk there in segment number 1. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll come back and we'll get you set for Tennessee and South Carolina baseball series to wrap up the regular season. We'll see if Tennessee will go into the SEC tournament ranked as potentially a number 1 team or kind of where that is. They're going to be a top 4 no matter what. All that and more is coming up next on a Thursday edition of Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys as always, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody.